I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room. The fallout still being felt after the stunning mistake made by two Northwest pilots who flew right past their destination by a mere 150 miles, later explaining they were distracted working on their laptops. That incident has added new fuel to a very heated debate. Let's go to CNN's Brian Todd. Brian?
Wolf, the overflight of that Northwest Airlines flight recently has again fueled an important debate in the aviation industry. What if there were cameras in the cockpit? It's been bandied about for at least 10 years now when the NTSB first started pushing for it, but the FAA has ruled that cameras are not necessary in cockpits because flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders suffice in safety investigations. Now, we're joined by Peter Goelz, a former NTSB managing director who has investigated several of the major crashes in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Peter, I want to start with one thing, and I'm going to use a little bit of a prop here. We've got a dome camera that we often see in our workplaces that's fastened to a ceiling. It can record images, not quite 360, but it can be adjusted to record a lot of images. That could be installed in a cockpit. You've got a lipstick camera here that could be fastened to either a ceiling or something in a cockpit and record images. What are these going to be able to tell us about a pilot's movements in the cockpit that those recorders don't tell us?
Well, there's been a number of accidents in the past decade in which there were questions raised and never fully answered about what was happening inside when the critical moment occurred. And this goes back, Egypt Air was certainly one in which the NTSB found that the pilot, the co-pilot, had deliberately flown the plane into the ocean off of Nantucket. If we had had a video recorder, it would have confirmed that finding.
Okay, I'm going to put an image of the cockpit up here again, and what the Airline Pilots Association, the pilots union, says is that these cameras are subjective. If they show an image of a pilot pressing a pedal or pulling on a lever, it just shows that person kind of reaching for it. It doesn't actually tell you that what that person actually did with it or whether the person actually pulled that lever. Isn't that a valid argument?
It is a valid argument, but one that does not disqualify the technology. Because today's modern cockpits, like this one, which is an Airbus, the data recorder records hundreds of parameters. I mean, but what the cockpit camera does is it would confirm that, it would give views of how the pilots were reaching for the various controls. It shows what pedals were being pushed and why and perhaps how much pressure was being pushed on it.
And it can also help maybe detect some weather events outside.
It can see things externally to the cockpit as well. So it is not a standalone safety tool, but it is a tool that it complements the voice recorder and the data recorder.
I want to read part of an Airline Pilots Association statement. They've come out with a long kind of argument against doing this, and a valid one that they raise is the privacy argument. This is from the Airline Pilots Association. Quote, once out in the open, a video recording can be made available on the web from anywhere in the world, 24 hours a day, forever. As one pilot bluntly stated, I don't want my spouse and children and grandchildren and a million strangers to be able to watch me die. Clearly a valid point.
There is no question that privacy rights, particularly in these tragic accidents, are critical. And the voice recorder has been protected over the years. It hasn't been complete. Some courts have released the actual recordings, but the voice recorder has been protected to a very high degree. I believe you could pass regulations and put penalties in place that would protect the distribution of any video that was ever taken in the cockpit.
You think we're going to see cameras in the cockpit anytime soon?
I believe with the advances in technology, with the digital cameras that we have now, that it is a tool that is going to be in the cockpit in the near future.
All right. Peter Goelz, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Wolf, coming possibly soon to an airliner that you may use, that I may use, maybe one of these. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Brian. Good report indeed.